Karen called the cops on me, then found out I run the county jail. She thought the man fixing a fence post was just another rural redneck. What she didn't know, that redneck was the sheriff of the entire damn county. It started with a chicken coop. Yeah, a chicken coop. I'd been working all afternoon, reinforcing the fencing around the back half of my property when I heard her voice sharp, nasal, confident in the way only someone truly uninformed could be. You can't have livestock that close to the fence line. That's a violation. I stood up, sweat dripping down my neck, and turned to see a petite woman in a tan cardigan, phone in one hand, clipboard in the other, standing like she owned the gravel shoulder by my mailbox. I wiped my brow. Sorry, ma'am, but this is unincorporated land. County rules apply here, and I'm well within code. She narrowed her eyes. We have HOA rules in place. I shook my head. Not on this side of Hollow Creek. Your HOA doesn't cover these lots. She tapped her phone. Then I'll just call the authorities. I smirked. You go ahead and do that. Let me rewind. Name's Clay Bishop, 45, widower, sheriff of Denton County, Texas. I've spent most of my adult life chasing bad guys through pine thickets and small-town dive bars. The kind of guy who doesn't make threats, just keeps promises. After 30 years in law enforcement, I'd earned my peace. Bought a 5-acre spread out near Hollow Creek. House with a wraparound porch, room for chickens, some goats, nothing fancy, just mine. When I moved in, I figured the worst I'd deal with was foxes or power outages. Not Karen. She lived a few houses down in a newly built modern monstrosity with solar panels and an imported stone driveway. Always wore those wraparound shades. Always carried a clipboard. Didn't matter that my land was outside the jurisdiction of her Bridlewood HOA. She made it her personal mission to enforce rules on everyone, even if she had to invent them. At first, I brushed it off. She left a flyer about unauthorized fencing materials. I tossed it. Then she put a sticky note on my trash can that read, "Bin visibility disrupts neighborhood aesthetics." Cute. But when she started knocking on doors, telling neighbors I was running an illegal poultry operation, I realized it wasn't just a nosy neighbor. It was a power trip, and I don't tolerate tyranny, whether it wears a badge or pretends to. The day she called the cops on me, I was cleaning out the coop, headlamp on, knee-deep in cedar shavings. My phone buzzed. Dispatch units, en route to 228 Hollow Creek Code, 601 potential violation, unknown hostility. I blinked. That was my address. I called in, Bishop here. Who filed it? Karen Whitaker, the dispatcher said, hesitantly. Claimed there's unauthorized livestock and a hostile male refusing to comply. I exhaled slowly. Send me the unit log. I'll meet them out front. 10 minutes later, I heard tires on gravel. 2 deputies stepped out, both new recruits from the academy rotation. I stayed by the porch, arms folded, no gun, no badge showing. Just boots, jeans, and a pissed-off stare. Karen practically sprinted toward them. There she said, pointing at me. That's him, he threatened me. He's got illegal chickens, and his fence is 3 inches over the limit. One Deputy Martinez approached me carefully. Sir, can I ask you your name? I raised an eyebrow. Clay Bishop. He blinked. Wait, as in... The other deputy stepped forward. Sheriff Bishop, I nodded. Karen's mouth dropped open. I pulled my badge from my back pocket and held it up. Yep, and I'd like to file a report for harassment, trespassing, and misuse of emergency services. Karen turned white. Karen stood in my driveway like a scarecrow about to snap in the wind. Her mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. Just the hum of disbelief buzzing behind her fake designer sunglasses. Deputy Martinez leaned toward her. Ma'am, Sheriff Bishop is the highest law enforcement authority in Denton County. You understand that? Right. Karen crossed her arms. No one is above the HOA rules. I stepped forward. There is no HOA here. Her lips twitched. We voted last year to extend jurisdiction past Hollow Creek. I narrowed my eyes. Jurisdiction isn't something you vote into a neighborhood where landowners never consented. She scoffed. You'll be hearing from the board. I smirked. Oh, I plan to. The next day, I drove into town and stopped at the county recorder's office. I knew the staff well, especially Joanne, the registrar who'd been working there since the Nixon years and still used a manual stapler that sounded like a shotgun. Joanne, I said, setting Karen's newest flyer on the counter. You seen anything legit from Bridlewood Extended HOA lately? She rolled her eyes. That lady again. Joanne rifled through the drawer labeled Hollow Creek Variances. Last real HOA filing was 12 years ago. Bridlewood's original footprint ended at Miller Creek. Hollow Creek residents opted out during development. There's no legal HOA on your block. Clay never has been. I tapped the flyer. She's issuing fines, posting notices, calling in reports. Joanne snorted. She's always faxing nonsense. Last week she tried to register neighborhood civility mandates, like it was the 10 Commandments or something. I grinned. You got copies. She handed me a manila folder, thick and overstuffed. Take it. Make her stop sending us mail. Back at the ranch, I read through every fake form she'd submitted over the last 2 years. They were laughable, sloppy formatting, contradictory bylaws, clip art gavel icons. My personal favorite, a scanned signature from someone named Judge T. Justice, which turned out to be a Looney Tunes character. Still, they'd worked, at least partially. Karen had convinced half a dozen newer residents on my side of the creek that she had authority. She'd collected compliance fees, sent fake code violation letters, and even confiscated someone's porch swing because it blocked visual harmony. That wasn't just annoying anymore. That was fraud. I called in a favor. Detective Lena Ramirez, Internal Affairs, a pit bull in a ponytail, met me at my office the next morning. I showed her the fake citations, the timeline of harassment, and the folder from Joanne. She leafed through it, jaw tightening. She's impersonating a legal entity and using false documents to compel payment. That's felony territory. Think it's time to knock on her door? Not yet, she said. Let's follow the money first. By Friday, Lena confirmed 3 Venmo accounts tied to Karen's fake HOA. One of them had nearly $8,400 in transfers over 2 years, all labeled things like HOA safety fee, parking violation, and nuisance animal control. She was profiting off a lie. Worse yet, she'd built a small empire around it, threatening the vulnerable, especially the elderly and new families who didn't know the local law. That's when I realized what this was. Not a neighbor gone too far. A predator with a clipboard. Word started to spread after Martinez told his cousin about what happened at my house, and that cousin posted it to Facebook. The post got shared over 300 times in 2 days. Soon, folks from all over Hollow Creek started messaging the sheriff's office. Karen told me I owed $250 for shed permit alignment. She threatened to fine me for my garden gnome. My kid's lemonade stand got shut down because she said HOA bylaws banned unlicensed food service. Lena compiled every message. We had more than a pattern. We had a case. Meanwhile, Karen wasn't backing down. She doubled her flyers. I found one nailed to my mailbox that read, Official Citation Livestock Smell Disturbance, $70 due immediately. Below that, she scrawled authority derived from 2020 Bridlewood Revised Mandate. And this time she didn't stop at the flyer. She spray painted a red V on the corner of my fence. For violation, I assume. I called it vandalism. Filed the report myself. By week's end, we served a search warrant on her property. Lena's team collected 5 clipboards, 2 boxes of fake citations, an ink stamp reading HOA enforcement, a binder of printed email threats sent to residents, bank records showing withdrawals to a private vacation account labeled Board Retreat Fund. She screamed, accused us of harassment, said the real criminals were the lazy neighbors ruining our curb appeal. No one bought it. Her mugshot made the front page. Headline read, Sheriff cited for chickens, HOA queen caught running fraud ring. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, but the story wasn't over. Because with Karen exposed, The entire neighborhood had to decide what kind of community it wanted to be. And that, I realized, would be the real test. Karen's mugshot hit the town faster than Friday football scores. By sunrise the next day, her face was on the bulletin board at Sam's Diner, on the morning newsreel at the barbershop, and on about 100 Facebook profiles with captions like, "Well, well, well, look who finally cited herself. Turns out the chicken man's the law. Guess the only badge that matters is real." But viral shame wasn't the end of it. Karen's arrest opened floodgates. By the time the sun set on day one, we had 36 formal complaints filed at the Denton County Sheriff's Office, ranging from harassment to fraud to unlawful entry. And now that the fear was gone, folks were finally talking. The town hall meeting that Sunday was packed. We moved it to the firehouse to accommodate everyone. Folding chairs scraped concrete floors. The room buzzed like an overcharged fence line. I stood near the back, arms folded, letting people speak. First up was Ed Taylor, a retired mechanic who'd lived on Hollow Creek longer than the pavement. His voice shook as he held up a photo of his mailbox. "She called it a rustic eyesore and fined me $70. He said, "I paid it. Thought it was real." I was ashamed. People murmured, nodded. Then came Lila, a young mom whose toddler's inflatable pool had been confiscated by Karen under a fake noise violation. "She cut it open with garden shears while we were inside," Lila said, voice brittle. "My daughter cried for 2 hours. Even tough as nails old folks were tearing up by the third speaker." Then Sharon stood, soft-spoken, mid-60s, lived in the cottage by the creek, always had flowers blooming. She told me I couldn't fly the American flag at night, said I'd be reported for visual light trespassing. I believed her. My husband was a Marine. That flag was his. Her voice cracked. I took it down. Not a sound in the room. Just the fluorescent lights and one old man blowing his nose in the back row. It wasn't just about fines, or notes, or chickens. It was about shame. She'd used shame like a scalpel, and now it was bleeding out on the floor for everyone to see. I stepped forward finally. "I won't bore you with a speech," I said, "but I will say this: Karen didn't get her power from a badge. She got it from silence. She printed fake rules, handed them to good people, and most of you nodded because you didn't want to cause trouble." I looked around the room. "You aren't weak for that. But let this be the last time someone makes you believe they're untouchable just because they talk louder than you." The crowd applauded, not roaring, just steady, like a town exhaling after holding its breath for too long. That week, we launched an official county recovery initiative, Operation Porchlight. Our mission was threefold: identify everyone who paid Karen anything, file claims for full restitution through the DA, educate homeowners about their actual rights. I personally visited 28 homes. I listened, I took notes, and I returned every single illegal citation I could find stamped void in bold red ink and signed with my real badge. Some people cried. One man asked me to burn his. So I brought a grill the next day and we did. But not everyone was happy. Some of Karen's closest advisors, a few wealthier residents on the far end of Bridlewood, started grumbling. She had a vision. One said to me, "People need rules." I looked him straight in the eye. "You don't need tyranny to keep grass short." Another neighbor, who used to walk with Karen every Tuesday, posted online, "The sheriff's making this personal. Just because she held folks accountable doesn't mean she was evil." That post got ratioed to hell, but it showed something deeper. Karen hadn't acted alone. She'd been encouraged, enabled, and if we didn't confront that, it would just happen again. So we did something bold. We hosted a community truth forum. No finger pointing, no punishment, just stories. Each person who'd been affected shared their experience, and shockingly so did one of Karen's closest friends, a woman named Beatrice. She told me people like Ed dragged down the street's image. I believed her. Beatrice admitted. She made it sound like duty, like we were protecting something important. But now I see it was just control and fear and pride. She paused. looking at Ed from across the room. I'm sorry. He nodded once. That was enough. That night, I walked home under stars that finally felt honest. I passed yards where lights glowed late and music played softly and no one feared a clipboard behind the hedge. I passed mailboxes free of Karen's red flyers. And when I got to my porch, I saw something that stopped me cold. A single American flag folded neatly sitting on my doormat, with a note that read, "Can you help me hang this again?" Sharon, I smiled, picked it up, and walked toward her house. By the end of the month, the red V Karen spray painted on my fence had become a symbol not of shame, but resistance. Someone snapped a photo of it and turned it into a t-shirt that read, "V is for Vindicated." Sold out in 3 days at the Hollow Creek Harvest Fair. We weren't just recovering, we were reclaiming. But beneath the laughter, the healing, the renewed sense of pride, something else was stirring, something we hadn't anticipated. A deeper rot beneath Karen's clipboard. It started with a phone call from Lena Ramirez. "Clay," she said, her tone uncharacteristically sharp. "You got a second?" We pulled bank records from Karen's fake HOA accounts, those 3 Venmo links. Yeah, she wasn't just collecting fees. She was distributing funds. To who? 4 names. One of them's her cousin in Austin. 2 more were listed under Shell LLCs based out of state. And the 4th, someone named Colin Bratcher. My blood ran cold. Colin Bratcher was the local developer who'd lobbied 3 years ago to bring a real HOA to the unincorporated side of Hollow Creek and failed twice. He'd shown up to zoning meetings in $1,000 boots, promising order and elegance, but really just wanted to control property values and fast-track luxury home builds. He disappeared after the second defeat, apparently not for long. I met with the county prosecutor the next morning. "You telling me Karen was funneling fake fines to a private developer?" He nodded. "Small amounts, but consistent, monthly. Looks like hush payments or kickbacks." I finished. He didn't deny it. Turns out Bratcher was using Karen's phantom HOA as a test bed, a quiet experiment in compliance. If enough residents accepted the false authority, he could point to community consensus in his next zoning appeal. And Karen, she got control, prestige, and money. It wasn't just about grass length or chicken coops. It was real estate manipulation. It was orchestrated fraud, and it nearly worked. I called an emergency town hall meeting that night. This time, I didn't just bring notes. I brought evidence. We projected Karen's payment history on the firehouse wall, showed the trail from fake citations to personal accounts, to Bratcher's dormant development company. People gasped. "What does this mean?" someone asked. "What happens now?" I spoke slowly. "It means we weren't just bullied. We were targeted, used to push a larger agenda." Silence. Then a voice from the back. And we stopped it. Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then growing. Because they were right. We had stopped it. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like a warning. The county responded fast. Bratcher was subpoenaed within the week. The city council launched a full audit of all neighborhood development proposals submitted since 2019. 2 more names surfaced, people who'd quietly helped write sample guidelines for Karen's flyers. The mask didn't just come off Karen. It shattered across half the HOA industrial complex that had tried to install itself in our town. What they didn't count on was someone like me living on the wrong side of their line, or a community tired of being talked down to. Meanwhile, back in Hollow Creek, we passed something important. A new charter called the Hollow Creek Declaration. It wasn't fancy. No legal jargon, no zoning codes, just 5 simple rules, printed on thick parchment and signed by 112 households. No one speaks for all unless chosen by all. Property is private. Respect it. Authority must be earned, not printed. Civic duty is voluntary, not enforced by fear. If your neighbor's in need, help, not fine. We framed it and hung it in the firehouse. Then we made copies, one for every mailbox. The media came back. Of course. Jason Weaver returned with a new camera crew and a bigger audience now that the state had picked up the case. He interviewed Doris on her porch, Greg in his shop, Sharon with the flag proudly flying again. Then he found me. "Sheriff," he said, leveling the lens. "What do you say to people who think this was just a one-off, one bad actor?" I looked straight at him. Karen was the spark, but the match was handed to her. People let her act like she had power. They were too polite to question it, too scared to push back, and that's how control works quietly, until it's too loud to ignore. He nodded. "And what would you tell a town going through something similar?" I smiled. "Take your power back, but keep your humanity. Don't trade one tyrant for another." He shut the camera off and said quietly, "Best quote I've gotten in months." We never saw Karen again. She accepted a plea deal, got 3 years of probation, banned from holding any form of neighborhood leadership, and ordered to repay $18,000 in restitution, plus an additional $9,000 in misappropriated developer funds. Bratcher's facing charges of conspiracy to defraud and interference with zoning protocols. Justice isn't always fast, but it came. On the 6-month anniversary of the first 911 call, we threw a block party, not to celebrate her downfall, but to mark our turning point. Kids ran with water balloons, someone grilled brisket, Sharon brought lemon bars, and me, I stood near the fence newly painted, the red V still faintly visible beneath the fresh stain, and watched a town that once whispered now sing. There's a moment in every small town where the dust finally settles, and you get to see what's worth keeping. For us, that moment came the night of the block party. I was standing by the fire pit with a glass of sweet tea in my hand, watching neighbors, people who used to barely nod at each other, laugh, swap recipes, and chase their kids barefoot across the lawn. Somewhere in the distance, someone started playing an old Willie Nelson song. Greg started a round of horseshoes. Sharon danced barefoot under string lights she'd wrapped around her fence herself. There were no clipboards, no citations, no paranoia, just people being people. That's when I realized we hadn't just gotten rid of Karen. We'd reclaimed something bigger than our street. We'd reclaimed trust. I never expected to become the symbol of resistance in a suburban showdown. I just wanted to raise chickens and mend fences, literally and metaphorically. But when Karen called 911 on me, it didn't just violate the law. It violated something sacred. It tried to weaponize the system against one of its own. The days following the block party were quiet, but in the good way. No more flyers, no more phony HOA mandates. The signs Karen had bolted to her yard had been removed by order of the court. In their place, kids rode scooters again. Families barbecued without fearing they'd be told their grill was 2 inches too close to the driveway. Doris put her bird feeders back up. Greg finally painted his shop door bright red, like he'd always wanted. And no one said a word except to compliment it. And me, I fixed the last dent in my fence from Karen's infamous V of doom, sanded the spot smooth, and carved something into the post instead. Truth doesn't knock, it stands firm. That carving became a bit of a local legend. Tourists stopped to photograph it. Someone from a nearby college painted a mural based on it. A podcast called Neighborhood Justice did a whole episode on Hollow Creek, titling it "The Sheriff Who Got Cited for Chickens." I still get emails from folks all across the country. My HOA president tried something similar. "I showed your story at our town meeting. I never thought to push back until I heard what you did. You reminded me that just because it's laminated doesn't mean it's legal." Some even sent cookies and letters from teenagers, veterans, single moms, city planners, people who had felt small under someone else's fake power, but not anymore. One day, I got a handwritten envelope, no return address. Inside was a folded note, stiff with pride and regret. I did wrong. I let power go to my head. I thought I was helping when really, I was afraid of being forgotten. You didn't just stop me. You stopped something in me. I hope someday someone carves my name into something better than a clipboard. K. It wasn't signed in full. Didn't need to be. I placed it in a file with the original fake citation Karen had taped to my chicken coop gate, still crinkled, still laughably misspelled, still the spark that started all of this. Not because I wanted to remember her, but because I wanted to remember the line, the one where accountability ends and control begins. and how fast good people can cross it. The final zoning appeal by Bratcher's company was denied unanimously by the county council. 3 council members credited the decision to public awareness and community testimony. Karen never returned to Hollow Creek, but her story lingered not as fear, but as folklore. She became a cautionary tale in Texas civic planning seminars. In Hollow Creek, we didn't just heal, we grew stronger. Neighbors First, the informal community group we'd built, became something of a movement. We had no bylaws, no fines, no titles, but we had monthly potlucks, a rotating tool share program, babysitting co-ops, and a mural project at the elementary school that read, "Civility is earned, community is chosen." The mural showed people of all ages holding hands, standing in front of a mailbox not because it was fancy, but because it was theirs. No spray-painted violations, just letters from friends. People ask me now what it means to be the sheriff of a county where something like that happened. I tell them it means more than enforcing the law. It means protecting dignity. It means recognizing the quiet forms of abuse, the ones dressed in khakis and wrapped in policy language. It means stepping up before people feel crushed. Because when you wear the badge, it doesn't just belong to you. It belongs to everyone you protect. And sometimes that means protecting folks from the clipboards, not the criminals. So if you're reading this and wondering how one fake citation could turn into a movement, ask yourself this: who's been trying to sound official in your life, who told you they had authority, and you just believed them because they were loud, organized, or dressed the part? And when was the last time you stood up and said, "Show me the law," because power doesn't live in a clipboard, a uniform, or a fine. It lives in truth, and truth, it stands firm. Call to action. Have you ever been bullied by someone pretending to have power they didn't? Have you ever paid a fine, followed a rule, or stayed silent because someone sounded official? Share your story. Speak your truth. Because justice doesn't just live in courtrooms or sheriff's offices. It lives on porches, in mailboxes, and in neighbors who refuse to be quiet. You don't need a badge to stand up, but if you ever find yourself facing someone misusing one, I'll be here, and I'll back you up.